We now speak to Dr. Lize Barclay, Senior Lecturer in Systems Thinking and Future Studies at the Stellenbosch Business School. Dr. Barclay, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Perhaps let's start off here. Yesterday, as the globe marked World Environment Day, South Africa has also been dealing with its own issues. Perhaps let's start off and zoom into the current dynamics we've been dealing with, especially when you look at the likes of Gqeberha and the likes of the Western Cape, and as well as KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes, climate change will see and have seen unprecedented storms, climate events, and it will lead to more floods, more problems if we don't deal with the situation on a global level, on a company level, as well as on an individual level.
And what do you make of the recent problems that we have seen, particularly in South Africa, when it comes to climate change and those provinces of the coastal areas?
It is very alarming because it is definitely the poorest of the poor that is the most impacted by these climate events. They have a very big destruction. They don't necessarily have the insurance to deal with it. And whatever happens on a global scale impacts them the hardest, and they suffer the most.
And would you say that looking at the problems associated with climate change, particularly in South Africa, that there are threats of a crisis in nature?
Absolutely. We are seeing desertification of certain areas. There's mass erosion. We have to look after our soil. We have to look at our entire ecosystem. And if we do not, disaster will keep happening. We have to look at the flow of our water and everything that we can do, we must do, and we must do it soon. As Gutierrez said, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a long-term problem that we can't reverse, because we can, but we in the next year or two will see unprecedented problems, from more serious floods to more tornadoes, to more climate issues, more heat areas, more cold areas throughout South Africa and the world.
And speaking about Antonio Guterres and the United Nations, this year's theme being land restoration and desertification and drought resilience. Perhaps maybe explain to South Africans, what does that mean in a time like now?
Well, these are the things that eventually provide us with soil, to provide us with food, to keep us water clean. So it's very important that we keep it intact. We don't lose more forests. Forests and trees are there to assist in carbon absorption. So it's extremely important that we take care of our soil. But we have to also look at some of the success stories we've had in the world, in Kenya, Tanzania, the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, as well as Saudi Arabia, many other countries have seen successes in terms of planting of trees, rehabilitating of desert areas. So it is possible that we can change it and change it for the good and take care of our soil.
And going back to the message coming out from Antonio Guterres, and also just outlining and highlighting the issues around fossil fuels and that Paris Agreement, what do you make of where we find ourselves now as a globe in terms of trying to eradicate, the fossil fuel industry?
It is a very serious problem because we are extremely dependent on energy. And cheapest and easiest energy in most of the cases throughout the world is still fossil fuels. It is going to take very long and very decisive action to move over to renewables. But we must also understand renewables is not necessarily completely green. It does come with the upstream mining that have many heavy metals in some of the solar panels, and a downstream problem in terms of e-waste and dumping of the solar panels, which then would leak the heavy metals into the minerals into the soil, ending up in the water system as well as our food system. So we have to approach this extremely carefully, bring a lot of innovation and personal effort to reduce our energy consumption, and think very carefully before we drive, think carefully about mass industrial animal agriculture and all these things that we do on a daily basis, because we can make a difference.
And why do you think it's taken the globe so long to completely move away from, using fossil fuel?
From a systems perspective, it became so embedded. It's embedded in our transport systems. When we turn on a light, the TV and computer screens we are watching at the moment, it's all fueled or predominantly fueled by fossil fuels. It's so embedded in the system, and a system takes extremely long to change. Now, in the 1970s already, they started explaining that the climate crisis might be ahead of us. But at that stage, it was difficult to listen. It's very abstract. People struggle with extremely abstract ideas. But with unfortunate events that we are seeing in terms of the storms, the flooding, people should now get an idea that they should change and on a personal level could make a difference.